All right, guys, we are back in my garage for another video, and today we are going to be setting up the X7 for FlexFuel. And I know you're probably wondering, why would you do that? And honestly, the only thing that has been holding me back is it's a family car, obviously, but my wife drives it as well. And heaven forbid, if I set up the car to run on an ethanol mix and she has to fill up somewhere, I don't want her to have to calculate a mix at the pump, or, if I flash it with the 85 and she fills it up with 93, I don't want that to cause issues down the road. So always just kept the car on pump gas to keep it simple and easy. But now with the ability to run FlexFuel, it takes all the guesswork out of it. Regardless of whatever we put into the car, it will automatically adjust and make the power safely. So as always, I'll have a link in the video description to all of the parts that we're going to be installing today. I'll go ahead and show you guys how it actually installs on your car. This will be the same process for a lot of different G series vehicles like X5s, X7s, 5 Series, and 7 Series. So this should work for a lot of you regardless of your car. And then in a future video, we'll also test it out and I'll show you guys exactly how the car responds to different amounts of ethanol. And hopefully we can finally get the X7 to 60 to 130. So let's go ahead, I'll show you how it's done, and hopefully you guys find this video useful. So let's start with a quick overview of the kit. Most of what you see should be the same regardless of whatever you order, but there will be slight differences depending on your platform. Inside the box, you'll find some paperwork with instructions and safety information. Remember, you're working on the fuel system, so you want to take appropriate care to minimize the risk of a fire or ingesting any fuel. Then we have the main pieces. So here we have the wiring harness, as well as the main control module for the FlexFuel sensor. Keep in mind, all of this is plug and play, so you don't have to cut any wires or drill any holes. But if you do have a larger car like my X7, then the extension will help make sure that you can reach the sensor and you don't have to, do any cutting or extending wires regardless of where you install it. Then we also have some of the safety stuff like goggles and gloves. And then there's the actual 360 fittings that will make installing the sensor between your fuel line connections super easy. It's completely reversible with your existing lines, so really this is the best way to install things. In order to prepare the sensor, remove the 360 fittings from the packaging and prepare the sensor for install. The FlexFuel sensor connections are 3/8 of an inch on both sides, but the fuel lines in the engine bay are 5/16 of an inch, so it can only be installed one way. Slide the 3/8 inch sides of the fittings onto both ends of the FlexFuel sensor by pulling back on the sleeve, push it all the way on, and then release the slide. You can see why it's called a 360 fitting, because once it's fully installed, it basically makes a full loop. So that allows the fuel line to connect to it without needing to make the line any longer or shorter. But after you get to that point, give it a little tug on both sides to make sure it's secure and won't cause any leaks. Now let's get the car ready for install. I'm actually going to show you 2 different ways the sensor can be installed based on your setup. So use the timestamps to jump to the section that meets your needs based on what you have. The first method will install the sensor in the engine bay. This will be the most common solution for people that have a mostly stock setup. Like in my case, I only have a downpipe, so everything else is the same. Go ahead and pull the hood release twice and then lift the hood to get access. Also, go into the trunk and disconnect the negative battery terminal. Some people will skip this step, but it will make sure that the fuel system doesn't try to prime, which would cause gas to shoot in your face. So better to be safe than sorry. Use a 10mm socket to disconnect the negative terminal and you won't have to worry about that. Then we're going to go into the engine bay and remove the engine cover by pulling up on the 4 corners where it's clipped in. You'll see your fuel lines are right on top of the engine towards the back, so we also need to remove this sound deadening for more access. All you have to do is pop off this grommet and then push it out of the way, and you can see the connections we're going to use where this hard line connects to the fuel feed line. For a little more flexibility, I recommend removing this E-torque screw. It should be an E6, and then disconnect the feed line, pop off the C-clip that is locking the connector in place. Here's what it looks like, so you can kind of see it just prise off. Then slide some shop rags or towels underneath the fuel line because fuel will leak out and you want something to catch it. To disconnect the fuel line, push both lines together, pull back on just the black connector, and then pull the line off slowly. Again, be ready for some fuel to leak out. That's completely normal and expected. Next, grab your FlexFuel sensor and you're going to plug the loose 360 fitting connections onto the fuel lines. The male 360 fitting connection will go onto the braided line, and then the female 360 fitting will go onto the hard line. And don't forget to reinstall the C-clip. Again, it's not 100% required. Some people will tell you it's not needed, but it's a nice OEM redundancy just for peace of mind so it doesn't get loose. Now, the only issue with installing it in the engine bay is a lot of you guys can't do this because of your fuel setup. So if you have maybe an upgraded high pressure fuel pump or port injection or something that modifies the feed line for your high pressure fuel pump, you might not have those connections in your engine bay where it can clip in really easily. So if you have a unique fuel setup or you anticipate upgrading your fuel system in the future, there's another way to install it underneath the car that is completely universal and works regardless of what you have going on in the engine bay. So in order to do that, the first thing you need to do is disable the auto leveling on your air suspension if you have that option. Hold the adjustment lever up or down for 7 seconds and then release it, and the ride height indicator should disappear, indicating that it's disabled. Then we're going to lift the car on the left side, get it up as high as needed because we're going to be dropping the entire under tray on that side. Then when you need to, line it up with your jack stand and lower the car onto it so that it is secure and won't fall on you. If you need the adapter that you see right here on my jack stand, I'll also have my affiliate link down in the video description so you can get one. It's really nice and easy and works with all BMW jack pads to keep the car secure without damaging the plastic. Then we're going to get underneath the car and remove all of the screws and nuts that are holding on the under tray. Some of them are 8mm and some are 10mm, and they go all the way around the entire perimeter of the panel. I can't remember how many screws they are, but just take your time, work your way all around and make sure you save the bolts so you remember where they go. Then you'll be able to drop the panel to access the fuel lines that basically go from the fuel tank all the way to the engine bay. Now, if you look forwards towards the front of the car, you should see this connection that goes underneath the engine bay. You're going to pry off the white retaining clip that is locking the fuel line in place. Then go ahead and grab your towel or shop rag to wrap around the line to catch any fuel that comes out. And there is a small white button basically on the back of the fuel line that you can push in to remove it. So just like before, push the lines together, squeeze the little button, and then pull the line off. It can be tricky since it's kind of blind. You can't necessarily see what you're squeezing on, but you can definitely feel it with your finger. So just take your time, and if you need to, you can try to use a small set of pliers for a little bit of assistance to squeeze the button in all the way. Now, depending on your platform, if your fuel line under the car is 5/16 of an inch, then you install the sensor just like you would in the engine bay. But as you can see on my X7, the lines are actually 3/8 of an inch. That's actually the same as it is on like an X5 and maybe some other models as well. So it's the same size as your FlexFuel sensor. So you basically have two options. You can get the 3/8 inch 360 fittings that are available and it'll plug in the same way. Or if you already have the kit and you're just moving things around, or you just don't want to buy extra fittings, you can reuse the kit that's designed for 3/16 fuel lines. Basically, what you're going to do is plug the two 5/16 connections into each other, and then you can plug the FlexFuel sensor directly into the female side of the fuel line connection, and then plug the male connection into the open end of the 360 fitting. So it works just the same. You just kind of swap the fittings around to make it work, and then you can adjust the orientation as needed depending on how your fuel lines are set up. Now, once you've got the FlexFuel sensor installed, we're going to go ahead and plug it into the wiring harness. If it's in the engine bay, you just plug it in directly to the main harness that goes to the controller. If you installed it under the car, then use the extension that came with the kit to feed it down into the engine bay until you reach the sensor, then plug it in that way. At this point, I also realigned the 360 fittings just to make sure the FlexFuel sensor can lay as flat as possible to keep it nice and low profile. So just make any adjustments you need at this point so that it installs nice and clean. Then go ahead and reinstall the fuel line mounting screw to secure everything in place. And then you can put the sound deadening back on, up and on top of the engine where it was. Clip the grommet back down so that the sound deadening stays secure just like stock. And then of course you reinstall your engine cover and boom, looks like nobody was ever here. Next, we're going to run the rest of the wiring and mount the control module. The easiest location is behind the firewall, so twist this clip and pop off the cover to access my preferred mounting location. Run the FlexFuel sensor wire in a clean way. I ran mine behind the strut brace, so it's kind of tucked away as much as possible. For the CAN connection, you'll need to remove the front strut brace to access the connector. The front bolt is an E18 E-Torx bolt, so go ahead and remove that. And then the rear is a 3/4 inch bolt, so remove that as well. Keep in mind they're both really long, so just take your time removing them. You're not crazy. It just takes a minute to get them off, even if you're using power tools. Then remove the brace and pop off the DME cover to access the transmission CAN communication connector. It's all the way towards the front of the car on my X7, almost underneath the grille. Use your fingers to squeeze the clips on both sides of the connector and then pull it off. And the MHD kit installs just like any other car. So you're gonna plug the female connector into the loose wire and then plug in the male connector for the MHD kit down into the main connection. They should only install one way, so if it feels like it's not going in, don't force it. Try turning it around 180 degrees and then it should slide right in if you have the right connector. If not, try one that's maybe adjacent to it but looks similar, and that should be the communication connection for your transmission. Then we're going to tuck all the loose wiring underneath the shroud so it's hidden as much as possible and reinstall the DME cover. Again, don't force anything. If some of the wiring is in the way, tuck it or move it out of the way until everything clears and the cover can be clipped down securely. At that point, you should have enough space to reinstall the strut brace and of course secure it with both screws. So that way, you know you've got everything installed properly. Technically, these screws are supposed to be replaced every time. Somebody always comments that. So yes, if you remove them, you can replace them, but I'm not, so don't tell anybody. Next, I went ahead and unplugged the control module just because it's a little bit easier to route all the wires while they're loose with everything disconnected. I'm going to route them between this brake and the weather stripping. This way you don't have to drill any holes or anything. Then once you've got it routed, you can plug it back into the module. Next, we're going to mount the ground terminal. I'm going to mount it right here on this nut that's behind the hood strut. Use a 13mm box wrench to loosen the nut, slide the ground terminal onto the stud, and then tighten the nut down securely so that you get a good ground. Keep in mind that 90% of the issues people have with the controller not working is because it has a bad ground. So if you need to, go ahead and scrub down the surface to get any paint or dirt off of it so that you get a nice good metal on metal contact. Then we're going to plug the latch wire into the control module and reinstall the battery negative terminal. The controller should light up. If not, open the door to kind of wake the car up with the key in your pocket and you should see all the lights turn on. If it doesn't light up, again, double check all your connections, make sure your ground is good and secure, and then of course make sure that your connection for the transmission and everything is plugged in properly. To keep the controller in place, I put some double-sided 3M tape on the back and stuck it to the back of the firewall so it would stay put. And then once it's all done, it should look like this. Pretty much OEM, except for, a few extra wires going into the firewall, but nobody's paying attention to that. So boom, your car is ready for an effortless 500 wheel horsepower while looking like it's completely stock. So that's what we got. Again, shout out to MHD for this kit. Being plug and play makes it so convenient. You don't have to tap into the footwell module or, repin any connectors or anything. It's literally 100% plug and play and 100% reversible if you do put the car back to stock. So really excited to test this out. Again, in my next video, we'll be doing some draggy pulls. We'll be doing some logs. We'll go over everything to verify exactly how the car is working on everything from pump gas to full E85. So I'll test it out so you don't have to. Stay tuned for that. And as always, I'll have links in the video description to everything that I've installed with this video. So use those links, please. It is a great way to support the channel, but I'm ready to test this out. So stay tuned for more. Otherwise, I think that's it for this video. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope this helps. And if you have any other questions or comments, leave them down below.